Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Bullship with Bill and Matt. I'm Matt. That's Bill. Say hello, Bill.
Hello.
Hi, Bill. Um, and before we go on, I have been remiss. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and in each of the good podcasts I listen to, they welcome and implore their listeners to like and share the podcast to help the podcast grow. We have not done that, and that I am remiss for this. So, Bill, I apologize for the lack of spread on our podcast. But everyone, please like, subscribe, and please share with a friend who might enjoy our own particular brand of nonsense.
I have no doubt that the only reason that we have so few listeners is that you have not been promoting it at the beginning of our podcast.
We have plateaued on our listeners right at the cusp of a dozen. A listener did tell me that if I were to put our podcast in a place where they could download it and listen to it and not have to stream it on YouTube, then they would listen more often.
That sounds like a solid podcasting strategy right there.
It sure does. So I'll probably work on that. I know that we have some episodes on Spotify, but I've been very busy and also very lazy, so I have not put them up.
That is not laziness, Matt. As I'm sure our listeners can figure out, we do not get paid for this, and so it tends to, yeah, it's not the top priority.
Yeah, we do this out of the joy of our own hearts. Although we do have phenomenal support in the form of advertisers that we plug every single podcast. They are not actively paying us to do this.
No, but we love them all the same.
But that could change if you were to use one of their services and tell them that we sent you. Then we could get some money. Just saying, everyone. But we will plug our wonderful advertisers here shortly in the middle of the episode.
This is
episode.
This is starting to feel like one of those public broadcasting fundraisers, Matt.
You know,
just gonna put
like
it out there.
3 minutes ago, you were lamenting, like, I'm not sure what we're gonna say to like Vamp at the beginning. Well, we found it, Bill. You're welcome.
We've done it 3 minutes in already. Way to go.
It's summer up there, right, Bill? You're
it
in
sure
summer.
Is.
Okay. We don't have seasons down here. It's just sort of always summer.
That sounds terrible.
It's not the best. I've got something to tell you, Bill.
Oh boy.
So my wife, who, surprise to listeners, I married. Some human decided that they wanted this forever. Surprise to me too. She is very much a beach person. She wants to be on the beach. She wants to be near the water. She wants warm breezes off of the ocean. That's what she wants in life. I am not that person. Opposites attract. I like to be in the mountains. I like to be cold. I like those things. So when we go on vacation, she and we have had to flip-flop, trade off, where are we going to go on vacation? So our honeymoon, we went to Cabo. The year after that, our second honeymoon, we went to Portland. Right, these are and then we had children, and we have not gone on a vacation since. So she has said, okay, it's my turn now. We will go on whatever. So she then informed me she wants to go to Boston. Right. I was like, hey, I'm happy to go to Boston anytime you want to do that. But also, this is your trip, not mine. This counts against your tally, not mine. We will be going to two cold places.
I mean, so we have beaches here in Massachusetts in the Boston. Not I mean, not really in Boston per se, but you can go not far outside of Boston. I grew up in a place not far outside of Boston where there are many beaches, and there is a small window of opportunity, and not even that small. It's like 6 to 8 weeks where it is both hot, but not like unpleasantly hot because you get the nice cool ocean breeze. Like water is freezing cold, by the way, too, like all the time. So yeah, this seems like a good compromise for both of you, actually.
Hey, she mentioned that she wanted to do it. I was like, fantastic, great. When we get enough money, then we will certainly do that. So, listener, if you want to, help me afford a trip to Boston, go to one of our sponsors. Um, so yeah, there you go, Bill. Boston. I've been there before. I've had friends that have gone to BU uh, and
Heard of it? Yeah,
traveled it. It was lovely up there.
it's a
Your
great
streets
city.
are super, super very small. I still certainly have an outstanding parking ticket that I'm just never going to pay.
Oh
Probably have
boy,
run out of like statute of limitations on it.
you might they might not let you in.
I might be Boston's most wanted at this point. They're never going to catch me.
That Matt and that. Wait, we produced Whitey Bulger. Like I think the bar is pretty high.
I have seen The Departed, so I'm familiar with the level of corruption there in
Yeah, yeah,
your
you got a
first
ways to
state.
go before you get anywhere in the top 100 there. Sorry, I hate to burst your bubble.
Good to know.
Yeah,
What are we? This is your topic, Bill. What are we talking about today?
this is my topic. I picked out a weird one that we're going to talk about flesh-eating parasites.
Here on the
It,
Bullship supply chain podcast. Yeah, two guys in a bar talking about the supply chain. Yeah, tell me.
yeah,
Let's talk about flesh-eating parasites. Sure,
checks
Bill.
out,
Yeah,
right? Okay, and
yeah.
actually, this is relevant for you. You're a Texas guy, so this should be relevant for you because this has to do with the New World screwworm. Have you heard of it?
No.
This is a pest that was supposedly or I don't want to say eradicated from the area in the
What area?
the southern U.S. and Mexico.
The New
Um,
World. Okay.
yeah, but that's not why it's called. Like I don't know why. I don't know why it's called New World, but forget New World. It's just what the critter is called. Um, but in the 80s, it was supposed to have been eradicated, and it's starting to make a comeback. And it's still been present, I guess, in like South America, but it's slowly working its way back up north, and it's getting into southern Mexico now, and it's a huge problem for cattle actually, because so what these things do, they're actually in their adult form, they're just little flies. They look like house flies, and they're harmless, I think. But their larvae eat live flesh, and so they will lay their eggs in open wounds on animals, and then the
Sure.
larvae hatch and start eating away. And
Burrowing in. Yeah.
yeah, gross, right? And they will cause infections. They can kill the animals, right? It's all gross and nasty. And obviously, like from a think about cattle, like big problem for the cattle industry. It has been a big problem in the past, and that's why they did go to great lengths to eradicate it. Yeah, but it's coming back, and so what I want to talk about is actually the supply chain of producing these creatures, because I came across this article. They're going to produce sterile males to go out into the world and mate and cause a population collapse, basically.
All right, Bill. Yeah. Sure. That you
And
said
so the,
supply chain. Let's go into it, buddy. Get. I'm
there is a
all
supply chain.
ears.
So I want to talk about, like, because I came across an article that basically said U.S. is going to open up a fly manufacturing site, fly factory they called it, and these actually already exist. Like there's already one producing sterile screw worms in Panama. They're making another one on the U.S. Mexico border.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay.
and so what they do is they produce these flies, they sterilize them, they send them out into the world. They go and they try to to mate, but they can't actually reproduce, and so they mate with like the actual wild flies out there, right? Who
Okay.
are
Yep.
right looking to mate too, and they
Yep.
lay the eggs. The eggs are not fertilized, and voila, population collapses. So that's how they're doing it. Um, so setting that aside, because it's really wild how they actually produce these flies. Um, but like, there's a lot of supply chain implications for this creature, because
Sure.
they've actually stopped cross border trade of livestock of cattle and horses going from U.S. to Mexico, precisely because of this, because they want to keep these bugs out of the United States. And so like big disruptions from a just like a supply chain perspective between the U.S. and Mexico. There's a lot of a lot of implications here. But how do you go about making a sterile fly?
Bill, you're gonna carry this one on your shoulders, buddy. I
This
please do tell me.
I was thinking about, like, we know how to think about, like, it's a biological supply chain. We know how to raise chickens from eggs, right? Like that's right.
You're really reaching with biological supply chain, but sure, yeah, we know how that
That is, I think,
anatomy. We know how that all that works. Yeah, the birds and the
exactly right.
bees,
And it's
literally. Yeah,
easy, right? It's relatively easy, right? Because you can see the eggs, you can see the chickens. You look
yeah,
at a chicken, you can tell if it's a male or a female, right? How do you do
yeah.
that with a tiny little fly?
Don't know. Talk to me.
So
Tell me.
yeah, so okay, so first of all, they have to collect the eggs. Can you imagine having that job? They do this manually. So what they do,
Keep going, Bill.
I love the reactions. This is great. Yeah. So they get these little substrates that mimic open wounds. So they chemically make it smell like, like an open wound, like blood, or I think with other animals they'll mimic manure or something like that. Because they'll do this with other flies too. I want to address that as well.
Yeah,
So they get the substrate. It's like a gauzy thing, or it's wax paper, foam block, or something like that, and they'll just
sure. Yeah,
they'll put the flies in a little box with these substrates and wait for them to lay eggs.
okay.
And they lay the eggs, and apparently, and I assume that these things would be microscopic, right? And so I'm saying, well, like, how do you even harvest these eggs?
I mean, small,
Very
probably. My
very small. So in egg
not
mass,
microscopic.
yeah. So I found out in egg mass for these things, which is about 200 to 300 eggs, is about the size of a grain of rice. So you can
Okay,
actually just see them.
okay,
And you go in there with, I don't know, tweezers or a tiny little spoon or something like that. People do this by hand, and they scoop up the eggs, and then they apparently they wash them. I can't imagine washing these, but they do try to sterilize them.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Before sterilizing them. Okay.
yeah. Apparently pathogens can be a problem. Even,
Wouldn't want
uh,
that in your supply
no,
chain.
no, exactly.
Pathogens and your parasites. Sure. Okay.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, you don't want pathogens killing your parasites, God forbid. Um, so so they'll gather them up, and they'll put them into the next phase, where they have to hatch the eggs and get them in, turn them into larvae, right, and start feeding the larvae. I
With
know.
what, Bill? Please tell me.
Great question. It slaughterhouse byproduct. How does that sound? Gross. These things eat live flesh, so they need to find something to mimic live flesh. So they get, yeah, I know I love the reaction. I wish our listeners, apparently most people are doing this on YouTube, so they can see you reacting, but this is.
Please watch on YouTube, or Spotify will be on video as well. So yeah.
So what did I say? Yeah, slaughterhouse byproduct, whatever that, like blood, ground meat. Apparently, they add powdered milk in there as well.
Okay.
So here's where, like, some more interesting supply chain stuff is. This stuff, the feed is very, very perishable. So right. So like, this is actually a complicated supply chain problem that they are trying to solve. And not only is it perishable, but these creatures need specific temperatures to grow. So it's all climate controlled.
Sure. Yeah.
They got these specialized feed, gross, probably smells terrible. I don't know, but and they stick these larvae into a little box with this little slurry and wait for them to just eat it and grow.
Do what they do. Okay. When do
Exactly.
we get to the sterilization part? How do they? Do you know how they do
That
that part?
yeah, that happens next. They
Okay.
use yeah. So once they're grown enough,
But they're
they
larvae. Do they know the gender at this point?
no,
Okay.
great question. We're going to get to that,
All
Matt.
right. Excuse me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm so glad you asked that question. But yeah, but first they these things grow from a larva to a pupa. I don't know the difference. We should have had an entomologist on the show. Is what it comes down to. But
Here on the supply chain show, Bill.
yes,
Supply chain. Moving of atoms, I guess that this still counts. So continue.
this is very much a supply chain. Yes. Um, so they will they take the larva and they separate them from, I guess, like the waste. I don't know what kind of waste, like the leftover bits and pieces of egg
Sure.
or poop or whatever. I don't know.
Whatever.
They
Waste.
they 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 yep, they take run them through a sieve, very fine sieve, and get just the larva, and then they expose them to gamma rays or X-rays.
That's how you get a superhero, Bill.
I know that. As soon as I saw gamma rays, I'm like, ooh,
It's literally the
incre-
Fantastic Four
and the
and
Incredible
the
Hulk.
Hulk.
Yep, that's where I went. I forgot the Fantastic Four did that. I
Yes.
know it was the Hulk, Bruce Banner,
Yeah.
famously exposed to gamma rays.
And wasn't I feel like Spider-Man was also indirectly tied to gamma radiation because were they had genetically modified the spiders that bit Spider-Man. There's a lot of
Oh,
Spider-Man.
I don't. I don't know. I think that depends on how far back you want to go. Because I mean,
Yeah.
when Stan Lee was writing that stuff, were they even thinking about genetically engineered
I mean,
arachnids at the
Stan
time?
Lee wrote the Fantastic. No, sorry, Jack Kirby wrote the Fantastic Four. Yeah, Jack Kirby was Fantastic Four.
All right,
I feel like Stan Lee did he do the Hulk?
he did Spider Man. I'm sure. I
I know he did
forget.
Spider-Man.
The Hulk is Marvel, so it's got to have something to do with Stan Lee, right?
Yeah, I feel like. Anyways, sorry.
So we're talking about all kinds of stuff here that we are not experts in at all. This is
Okay, so we're sterilizing flies now, Bill. When
yeah, we're
do we want to plug us? We had a really long plug for a sponsor last episode. I feel like we're good. We can just keep rolling. I don't know if any of our sponsors really want to be associated with like neutering flies, parasites, but that's up to your decision here, Bill.
yeah, let's get through this, and then I do think we owe them a plug nonetheless, and just know that they were not part of the decision to discuss
We
uh,
we don't
parasites in
run
this episode.
anything by them. They're
In,
super
in,
great humans.
they are great. Yes, yes. In fairness, Matt also was not a part of this decision.
I certainly was not.
Anyway, so they expose them to X-rays or gamma rays and sterilize them.
Okay.
And then they got to package them. So and actually, there's a whole bunch of quality control too. So before they package them, they are checking like hatch rates. They're monitoring the growth of these things, and they're like their weight and their size. They have to verify sterilization. So they'll actually do sterility tests, like all kinds of quality control going on here, because the last thing you want to do is like go through all this and then release fertile creatures into these
QC, super important part of the supply
super
chain.
important.
Very
Yes,
important part of the supply chain. Gotta QC it. Yep. Okay.
exactly. Yeah, and all this on these tiny little flies, like it's
Yep.
amazing. Um, and then they chill them down because they want to like get them a little inactive,
Yep.
easier to control, and they'll put them into these cylinders. Actually, they'll put them in these cylinders also just to see how well they fly, because they don't want the ones that don't fly well. So the ones that fly to the top are the ones they keep, and the rest they quote unquote discard. Yeah.
Dispatch. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they pack them up on these chilled containers, and then they throw them in a plane and fly off. They figure out exactly like the right place. I guess they're probably looking at wind conditions and maybe where they've recently spotted populations of these in the wild, and then they will just distribute them into the world.
Wow.
And that is how you make sterile screwworms, Matt.
Yeah, but that was a lot of
And
information there. Okay.
I, I, I want to talk about the gender thing though, because you asked. It was a great question. Because so apparently the facility where they are going to set this up is already active producing sterile fruit flies,
Okay.
which are also a major pest,
Yes.
and problem for crops. And so I found out that it went for fruit flies. They've got lots of different methods for separating males from females, and in particular, what they'll do, I think like the most advanced techniques involve genetic modifications to the fruit flies, where like they'll cause one gender to incubate at a different temperature than another, and so the males incubate at a higher temperature than the females. They will raise the thermostat on those eggs. All the females die. That way, they only get males. Another thing they can do is, this is like right out of Jurassic Park. They can
I
make
was
these.
gonna make
Yeah,
that connection, Bill. I
yeah.
was just
They.
waiting for a gap.
I knew you were going to. Yeah, no. They will make one gender dependent upon a certain kind of nutrient.
Of course. Yep.
Exact. Yep. Right. Right out of Jurassic Park.
It's
And
amazing how
yeah,
Dr. Ian Markham called this. There's never a bad. This certainly never will, life find a way, but sure, whatever.
exactly. Anyway, though, they can't do that with screwworms because
Sure.
screwworms are so fruit flies. We've studied the hell out of their genomes, right? So
Yeah.
we know all about their genetics. It's much harder to do for fruit flies, apparently, for screwworms.
Okay.
And so they just have to release sterile females with the sterile males, which
Not a
is
big
too
deal.
bad because they're just like not a big deal, right? But it's just like it's a waste, right? You don't want to. You're spending all this time and only half of what you produce is actually going to have an impact. Whereas with the fruit flies, you're able to produce only sterile males, and it's a more efficient supply chain that way, Matt.
I mean, but I have so many questions, Bill.
I think I've told you pretty much all I know about this at this point,
I'm
but
not gonna
go for it.
ask okay, there is one question in particular, specifically regarding like whether or not half of the created items are in fact worthless, right? And I'm gonna walk a very, very thin line here. If a female screwworm lays eggs and sterile eggs, and a male screwworm fly, whatever, fertilizes them, I feel like we have potentially, done the same thing, right? We've kept some amount of population from happening. I do not know how many eggs a fly can fertilize.
I believe they die after one mating. So
So then
interesting.
maybe
It,
100% of your product is viable.
that's not what my research suggested, but again,
Your
not the
research
expert.
of how long, Bill?
Uh, minutes, Matt.
Minutes. Okay.
Dozens and dozens of minutes.
Dozens of them. Well, Bill, thank you for that. We are at 24 minutes of this. One thing that I do want to say, surprising to you, I am not coming into this with zero knowledge, because I actually have a friend whose job it is to breed flies.
And you're saving this for the end of the podcast?
Yes, she is a scientist at the University of Texas. And they have, like, as part of the, I guess, genetics courses that someone can take in genetics or some entomology, I'm not entirely sure. We don't ask about her job a lot. Part of the lab is this recurring thing of like, we need a certain amount of flies to test, and so someone has to breed them, and my friend is that someone.
Amazing. Well, Matt, we need to re-record this with her as a guest.
I will I will ask her several questions, and we will get a follow up in the next Bullship podcast. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, Bill, for this very enlightening subject.
Last thing, how many flies do you think they can produce in a week?
I feel like we're talking thousands, right? Like
Oh, more.
more than thousands.
100 million in
Get
one facility in a
That's a
week.
lot a week.
Right.
Wow.
Yep.
All right, Bill, that was truly astonishing. Do we want to plug someone? We're at
Yeah,
26
we
minutes.
we're a little deep into it, but we should say that Parabola is our sponsor. They are great. They are the spreadsheet alternative and beyond.
Yes.
If you have data processes that you are wasting hours and hours doing manually in spreadsheets by email, we talked all about this in our last episode. Parabola is for you.
Yes. Thank you, Parabola, for continuing to allow your name to be put on this here podcast. And what might be Bill's favorite addition to the podcast? Are you ready for another country of origin question, Bill?
I can't wait.
Okay, so this is one that is not about the specific country of origin, but more about like labeling. Now, let me kind of back up and say that. So,
All right.
Whenever goods are imported into the United States, you have to declare the country of origin. And technically speaking, that country of origin is required to be told to the end consumer. It's a labeling requirement. Now,
as in like this is a product of such and such a
either
country.
Either you have to explicitly say this is a product of Mexico, China, etc., or you can say something like made in America, made in wherever. Okay, those are labeling requirements that have to be on all finished goods. The consumer knows where they're getting stuff from. Okay.
Yep.
Now, there was a question that came up before the U.S. Customs Court, whoever, with a jeweler who was sending jewelry into the United States. Now, here's the question, the kicker. These items were old, right? We're talking about diamonds, jewelry, like, what's the word? Precious jewels.
Mm-hmm.
Country of origin had long been lost on those items, right? Because here's the kicker. They were being sent to Canada for repair. Now, here's where we get into the quirk of the law, is that because they were going to be sent to Canada and then brought back into the United States, a country of origin was required. But they'd been in commerce for so long that no one knew where the original country of origin was. So what do you think the requirement, or what do you think the judge passed down for this one?
I mean, it seems like Canada's the only option here, but I feel like I know the way you're looking, I feel like that is not the right answer. But I'm gonna have to go with Canada because I have no idea how else to rule this.
Great, thank you. You are yet again wrong. So the judge ruled that because the items were for repair and the end consumer would again be the previous owner of the item, a country of origin was not required for import because it was assumed that the end consumer already knew where those things were and did not care. So there you go, Bill. This one you actually
that was a trick question.
It was, right? I had 20 minutes to prep this. I did not need to go into in-depth knowledge. There you go. So yeah, it was not required for import into the United States. Very, very rare exemption on that, specifically because the items were repaired and brought back in. And import was not, they did not require country of import, country of origin at import.
And we just assume that the consumer knows where these things come from. That is a bunch of legal bullshit here, and I, don't get me started on lawyers and judges. I know and love many lawyers, but God, that's just a bunch of nonsense.
Like the rest of this podcast has been, Bill. Thank you so much for letting me about the genetic properties of
Screwworms.
screwworms. Appreciate it. We should actually talk about insects in the supply chain because they are a huge problem. But that we will save that for another time, another story. Bill, thank you so much for bullshipping with me today.
Thank you for listening to my bullshit today, Matt.
All right, everyone. Again, thank you so much. Like and subscribe to the video. If you're on YouTube, there's probably other stuff that you will want to watch here. Please share with a friend. Maybe not this episode because we got really far from the topic on this one, but definitely one of them. Share a good one. Last one was really good. Thanks, Bill.
By supply chain.